You ready? All right. Good evening, and we'll call the school committee budget meeting on March the 5th to order at this time, and we'll begin with the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, would you like me to take it from here?
I'm turning it right over to you.
Okay.
It's all yours. Yours and Kim's.
I'd like to start with our 6 strive statements to begin our meeting, as we do with all of our budget meetings. They're in your packet. The 6 strive statements for the Acton School Department FY21 school budget is we will strive to work together as a community that values the education our children receive at AES. We'll strive to be fully present at the meetings by becoming familiar with materials and by being attentive. We'll strive to invite and welcome the contributions of every member and listen to each other. We'll strive to be involved to our individual level of comfort. Each of us is responsible for airing disagreements during the meeting rather than carrying those disagreements outside the meeting. We'll also strive to operate in a collegial and friendly atmosphere, and we'll strive to be responsible for examining all points of view. Tonight's agenda, thank you, Kim, for organizing us, is Article 3, which is special education, that we usually save to last because there's so many moving parts to that, and it's a fairly good-sized article, good-sized piece of our total budget. After that, we'll look at revenues. So tonight we will finish up the expenditure side of the ledger, and then we will look at the revenue side and take a look at what that has to offer. And then finally, we'll look at a couple of reserve articles we have that we're going to bring to the town floor. And then our work is complete. A week from tonight, we will have our regular school committee meeting, where the school committee will vote on all of the articles that will be prepared and presented to you. And then a little less than a week from that, on the 18th, Wednesday at 6 o'clock here at Acton Elementary School, will be Warrant and Finance's turn to sit at the table and review the budget articles. Okay, so any questions about where we're heading? Hearing none, I will remind the committee that when we look at an article, we look at the comparables starting from left to right. You'll have your, for instance, the first one, student transportation, K-8 is our first line item. You'll see that we have what we have budgeted for this coming year, and then to the right of that where it says variance, it's either a negative or a positive. A negative is surrounded by parentheses, and then the notations is any kind of an explanation. So I'll start with student transportation, go line by line through Article 3. And as you can see, student transportation K-8 under special education is down, minus $10,800. Please do jump in. I paused to move to the next one. You can jump in anytime with any questions.
Yeah. How many special ed students are there?
There's a total of 46 in all through the school. Not all of these are out of district. Okay, so out of district transportation, it always depends. It floats on what's needed. Right now we're running about 7 or 8 out of district students. And we also use the local entitlement grant to help offset these costs. So I have budgeted $50,000 of our local entitlement to bring down the transportation, and $50,000 in the out-of-district tuition, which you'll see it a little bit. So we, to fully implement our local entitlement grant.
Okay. Yeah, I just had no figure in my mind from last year as to how many special ed students there were. So
Right.
It was a general question. It wasn't specific to any numbers here.
I think it's important also to note a little bit about special education, that there's an individual educational plan for each student that identifies a student as having special needs. And needs can range, Virginia, from just having a little bit of help, perhaps in math in the classroom with very, very little extra support. It's just a little bit a kid needs and the teacher's taking care of all of the needs in the classroom, to students that may have multiple handicaps, physical and cognitively, and need way more support. So 46 students in all, and roughly 7 or 8 students that are being served outside of our school because of their significant needs. Okay, that'll help a little bit.
Did you say 46 total K to 8 only?
Pre-K, yeah. And
We
that
don't cover
includes
the
a lot of
pre-K.
speech. I'm not sure.
Well,
No.
the pre-K would
I
be
think they're under
Yes,
CDS.
CDS, so we pick them up in kindergarten, so it's K to 8,
K
yeah.
to 8.
Dennis?
My experience has been with the special education, The special education, as a general rule, gets a bad rap. I think it's exactly like you said, John. That quite often, there's a student that falls into a special education class that does need just a little extra help.
Yeah.
And some of these people that have gone through the program in the past, and I'm gonna use my nephew for an example, when he graduated from Wells High School, he had a choice of full scholarship at Yale or full scholarship at Harvard. And now he's a professor out in the Midwest somewhere, and all he really needed was that extra help for a few years here in the elementary school. And quite often that is, all they need is just a little boost.
You bet. You bet. Thanks, Dennis. So the transportation for K-8, we covered transportation students 9 through 12, so these would be students at the high school end. That is down as well, minus $8,408.
He went to Harvard, by the way.
Did you choose that one? You were waiting for me to ask.
No, I just saw
that. Teacher's salary and
Wait, so the same thing,
It's-
down 8,000 because
Da-
you're moving money from
And
entitled?
moving
to-
kids.
You've got to remember
Yeah.
too, sometimes it just depends on the kids. So sometimes I might have more kids that are in K-8, and then all of a sudden, whoop, one finally makes it from the 8th grade to high school, so then, boop, I end up bumping them up. I mean, overall, you just look at transportation overall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to designate for the state
yeah.
whether it's
Yeah.
an elementary student or a high school
I
student.
can give you a statement overall that's going to cover several of these line items around out-of-district placements. I'm going to try, we have a few more kids that are closer to Acton, but their placements are just a little bit higher priced than the placements have been in the past. So transportation costs are down because we're not going as far to get to these places. Our student numbers are a little bit up, so there's more of them, but they're still closer to home. But the places that we're taking them, also the tuition went up. So does that kind of make sense? We're not sending them as far away, a little pricier, there's a few more of them. And that, you're gonna see that play itself out in the next few pages, yeah. Okay, so we are looking at people now, and I'm on the third line down, and we're looking at salaries in the resource room. That's one special education teacher with a salary bump of $1,000.90. The ed techs, there are 4 ed techs in the resource room, and their salary's contractual. The 4 of them are up $22,925. Ed tech salaries 9 through 12, that's our high school obligation. That's down almost $15,000, and that had to do with the person being moved from the, as Kim just mentioned, an ed tech moving from the high school back down to the elementary school because there was no longer a need at the high school for that individual. So we use that person down here. Excuse me, tutors within special education is up $600. Substitutes for the resource room is flat, no increase, no change. And then we're into this benefits piece, and we're going to see the benefits and insurance. Just to remind folks that the notations that are there are pretty much boilerplate all the way through the entire budget. So teachers' benefits are up $228, ed tech benefits in the resource room up $1,867. Ed tech benefits at 9 through 12 are down almost $1,000 at $972. Teachers' group insurance for resource room is down $1,600. Ed tech group insurance for the resource room is up almost $20,000 or $19,932.
Why?
Well, keep going. Next one.
So ed tech group insurance 9 through 12 is down $24,000, $785.
Person moved out of high school.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
It's-
The line above that went up 19 says for 5 ed techs, but up above it says we only have 4?
No, there's actually 5, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Okay.
There are 5 ed techs in total. The one ed tech that was in the high school is now moved up to the elementary, so I do have 5. I have.
So
yeah,
it's
5.
1 special ed teacher, 5 ed techs, and then
You could say that.
the one that was at the high school is no
Is-
longer there.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Can you put that in your notes?
Yeah,
Like
I
one
just
ed
changed
tech
I just saw her
moved
change it.
out- No,
yeah.
but moved
Yeah.
out, or,
Well.
what do you say?
Well.
Transferred,
It's just.
or-
transferred.
Yeah, transferred.
Yeah.
Just
I
shift the
can.
word transfer so we
Transferred.
remember.
Yeah, okay.
Transferred within the school department, literally a different
Yeah.
school. Yeah, okay. And then we're at benefits, at tutor benefits up $13. Substitute benefits for resource room flat. no change. And then we're into retirement for teachers, up $45. Retirement for ed techs, up $954. Any questions on that page before I turn it? No. We're good?
yes.
Yes, okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
so, the 5 ed techs, is that K to 8?
This group
This is resource
is
room.
Right,
actually
the
the
resource room is
higher, okay, 1, 2, no, they're all 3 to 8,
So 3 to 8.
yeah.
In theory, they could serve K to 8 though, if there was a need.
Especially, and there's another one of
Yeah.
those kids travel
You're
with
gonna see the
grades.
Yeah.
K2s down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just matches
Yep.
it just matches the other way that they're blocked out, K to 8 and 9 to 12.
Pretty
right?
much, yeah, yep. Then we're into retirements, ed techs at the top of the next page. It's flat, no change. As a matter of fact, okay, they're different items. Travel and conferences flat, supplies is flat, no change. Testing is no change at 400. Books and periodicals, no change at 100. Equipment, no change at 100. Teachers' salaries for self-contained. So it's a different kind of area for special education. Contractually, that's up $2,400, 2423. Ed tech salaries for self-contained is down $2,332. Substitutes for self-contained, no change. Teachers' benefits for self-contained, up $332. Ed tech benefits for self-contained, down $461. Teachers' group insurance for self-contained, down $926. Ed tech group insurance for self-contained is down $2,099. And substitutes is flat at $514.
All right, so is there any way you put the word self-contained somewhere so we
It
know?
says SC. Yeah, that's what that means. That's why I said
know,
self-contained.
that's what it means.
Okay, we could
But
put a
don't
no.
have it written anywhere.
No, nor did we RR for resource
We're not
room.
going to?
But we
No.
can't.
Well, it
Can you
just-
fit it in the line on the computer?
Well, I'm thinking on the,
Maybe just in the
in the
comments.
notations, for the first one, if you put
Oh, just
teacher's
the first one.
salary and put salary for, and then put self-contained or something.
You know, as the public looks at it, yeah, that might be, I know what it means. I've told
And
you
the
what it means,
resource
but
room.
in RR, same
Yeah,
thing.
I know, I was just thinking, we know that, but.
The first time you see it is what you're saying. Just do
Yeah.
it at the first time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So put it up in the front part, you see.
Yeah, put it in the notations on the other
Okay.
side. So where it says like one sped teacher, I'm just gonna say one sped teacher resource room.
Yeah.
And then the other one down, one sped teacher.
In parentheses, RR equals.
Self-contained, yeah.
So, okay.
I'm on teacher retirement, main PERS. Teachers up 101, main PERS. Ed techs retirement down 97. Tuition public is down $5,000. And this is tuition costs outside our educational system, so tuition public. And in talking with Kim, the change is taken from the local entitlement grant. She mentioned that earlier as we got going. She prefaced with that.
For that one, that, you're gonna see that, yeah.
We're gonna see it again though,
Yeah,
right? You'll
you're
see.
gonna see it again.
So tuition out of District 9 through 12 is up 61,942, and that's what we talked about earlier when I said more students, closer, but a little more pricey tuition for where they are, because the tuition costs went up. Okay? And then travel and conferences is flat at 450, supplies is flat at 1,000. Testing, no change at 400. Books and periodicals, no change at 1,000. Equipment for self-contained is up $1,500, and that's equipment needs for a specific person. Let's just say, to be careful, let's just say he's just or this person is a growing child, so has to do with size and weight.
A question, please.
Yes.
On the private school tuition, is there a cap on how much we will pay for private school tuitions? Like, can they go
There
wherever,
is
however amount?
That's a great question.
There is a cap
Different.
that the state says they can charge. So if you are running a special ed out-of-district placement, you are allowed to charge a certain amount, and the state will only allow you to do that, you know, up to a certain level based on what you're doing. So if they were going to Sweetser or Waban or Maplestone or, any of these other places.
Any approved places.
Yeah, they have to be approved.
State approved.
There's a lot of stuff that they have to go through, and then the state will send out a list, which is on their website, that will say for private paid tuition, the state will only allow like Maplestone to charge X amount per day, or Waban to charge X amount a day. They can't charge any more than that. So that's where the caps are. The caps are placed by the state.
Can you say what the cap is from here to here, from 60,000 per student to 100,000, or,
Basically,
you
it
know?
runs, I've seen everything from, the lowest is $284 a day, up to, the highest has been like $367 a day.
And you just
So
do
it-
times
it
180
ranges,
roughly.
depends on what the need is, what they're
Oh,
getting
yeah.
from
Yeah,
there.
depends on what the.
Well, the other thing is to know that it has to do with the IEP. It has to do with
Absolutely.
how all the professionals feel this child would do better, and so we really have no control on
What the
that.
needs are,
Right.
right?
And more to the point of approved schools, there's a lot of different kinds of schools out there. We can only work as a public institution with approved schools, so we can only send students off to an approved by MDOE special needs school. And there's nothing preventing from a private citizen from sending their own child there for 10 times as much. It's just that cap is for public schools. That's as much as they can charge us as a public entity.
Right, and
So-
other than special ed students,
Mhm.
your
You're talking
everyday
of-
student, if they choose to go to some private school, is there any cap?
So I can answer.
That's the state.
That's, again, it's based, again, only in a public school. We have a contract with Sanford, and that is only for our high school kids.
Yeah.
So if they're pre-K through 8, they come to Acton. If they don't want to come to Acton, they can ask me and the superintendent of another district for an agreement, and we can do that, but that's not guaranteed.
Yeah.
It's guaranteed they'll go to Sanford when they hit 9th grade if that's where they want to go. If they don't want to go to Sanford, they can take the money that we would give Sanford and they can apply that towards another public-approved school. If it's any more than that, that's on them to pay the difference.
Okay.
Or they get in a waiver with that superintendent, another high school, and they go there, and then that becomes between Sanford and them where the student goes. We really don't, we're just paying the high school tuition at that Sanford rate. It doesn't change, it's always the Sanford rate.
Okay.
Are you talking
And
about
we-
like
and we don't
Berwick
pay-
Academy?
We don't pay.
Like-
I was thinking
trans-
any of these other
We don't pay
academies.
transportation
Yeah.
anyplace else at high school. We only pay transportation to Sanford. If they choose to go someplace
Yeah.
else,
Yeah.
then they're responsible for their own transportation.
Yeah.
Any-
So,
yeah.
what I'm looking at, the 284 per day at 180 days is a minimum of 51,120. I mean, that's a
State-
lot more than a college.
Oh, yeah.
Depends on where you
Well, and the other thing too is a lot of the sped students actually go to school a lot longer than the.
A longer
like our
day?
Kids. No, I mean,
Longer
Year round.
like, sometimes they
Extended
don't,
school
like, they
year.
do more in June, and then they have summer, and then they have, not all of them have the breaks that we do. Sometimes they just have the Monday holiday, so it just depends on the school.
I'm not shocked, I'm just
I know.
stating.
We
It's a
don't
lot of
have
money.
any students going to Berwick Academy anymore, do we?
No.
Or any other, remember, what else was Berwick
We might
Academy,
have.
Brewster Academy?
We
They
keep
have
tab,
had
we,
some in the
Yeah, in the
past.
past, there were a lot in the past.
not right now. The answer is no, yeah, not right now.
Not for the last few years, no.
Yeah, yeah. We do get students every now and then whose parents will meet and say, want to go to Noble, or because, I went to Noble or something like that, and it's completely up to the Noble superintendent, MS 8060, to accept them.
Well,
Because they gotta look at the class sizes and say, do we have room? It almost always works out, though, in my
We also
experience.
have, we do have a limit though, in our contract
Right.
with Sanford as to
How many we're gonna send
how
away.
many can go someplace else.
Yes.
20%.
So-
yeah.
But if, you're looking at it, it's probably because there's a new high school. They don't want to go anywhere else.
There have
Well,
been
they have
people
to-
who have
They have
said,
to
yeah,
bank on a certain amount of money from us too.
True.
Yeah.
to run their budget.
Right.
You were saying now this is a new high school, maybe it's less attractive to go somewhere else because Sanford's got such a new high school. And I can say, in fact, I know of a family that planned on going to a different school, took a look at what the options are now and made those changes last year for their freshman student. So Ed, you're right. I know of one case like that.
John, what's the cost of living increase in the teacher's contract and the sports contract?
It's not really a COLA. It's, we were just negotiated a 3-year contract with them. Boy, I want to be careful, to say
Yeah.
exactly what we think it is. Can I,
Wait,
if you
Let Kim
want,
look it up.
Yeah,
why don't we get back to you on that? Because
Yeah,
I
that's
never
fine.
want to just kind of throw something out there.
Yeah.
But next meeting, we'll make a note, Kim, to make sure that we get that to warrant and finance.
She might have it right there.
Yeah.
Unless if you have it.
yeah, I do.
Oh, you do? Okay, then we won't wait. Dennis, unless you want me to make you wait a week.
Might not be here a week from now.
Well, you better tell them then.
So the teachers for FY 2021 had a base increase of 2.5%.
Okay.
Okay, so on their step
Yep.
increases, the base.
I understand it's two different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it, that's what the teachers, the,
That's close to the COLA, I think,
yeah.
for everybody.
Now, that cost of living, cost of living's like 60%, not the 1.8% they got in Social Security. And they tell you that.
Wait, if you got
They
Social
tell you
Security
that.
and it went up 1.8, then that's what the cost of living is supposed to
But
be.
it's not.
correct?
No,
It's
it was
not.
two, wasn't it two?
No, it's
That's how they-
1.7 or
1.7.
1.6 or
Right,
something
but I'm
like
just
that.
saying, that I don't know why they keep saying that.
So, and just to give you the support staff,
Yeah.
because I just gave you the teachers, they do theirs
Yeah,
differently.
that's
They
right.
basically just had a 30 cent per hour increase,
Really?
so.
I wonder what Congress people got.
I just, with that
They
question,
just gave themselves a raise.
Yeah?
for the last couple of years anyway,
Where?
the other departments in town, not all the departments, municipal department, have been giving out 3% raises. And my argument has been, when I was working, I thought that was a pretty good deal. But now that I'm not working, I am just following, senior citizens are just falling farther and farther behind with these big increases. And I realize if you're only making $15,000, a 3% raise really isn't that much. But when you're talking people that's making $90,000, that's quite a bit. Not that I'm disagreeing with what you guys negotiated, it's just conversation.
Well, speaking of salaries, could I take the next one on, which is Director of Special Education salary is flat at $29,250 for our Director of Special Ed.
How could it not go up?
Contracted part-time.
Yes, you're good now.
Why are you just complaining?
Not.
Because she is amazing.
Okay, any last
all
questions
she
on the
wanted.
page before we turn that one?
Surprised.
Okay. I'm seeing benefits. Director benefits is up 113 at the top of the next page. Insurance
20-something thousand.
and retirement, the next two are flat. Staff development is flat. Contracted services with Sanford High School is up 32,175, and you can see in the language at the contract for sped students at Sanford High School, including students enrolled in the Bridges program, less the grant funding.
Bridges is what?
It's an alternative special ed program that Sanford offers, and we've been really taking advantage of that because that's one of our sending schools.
Is that one of the work programs?
I'm gonna say they probably have a work component of it as for the high school kids. Everyone that I've ever known would have work study. Yeah, you try to build that
Didn't they show
in.
us on the tour that the Bridges
Yeah.
program has their own space
Yeah,
at the end
exactly,
of
yeah,
one
on
of
the
the
first one down,
wings?
yep.
They have their own entrance they use, so
Yeah.
the kids, if they don't want to interact, they don't have to, kind
Right.
of thing.
But there's still, it used to be a separate building from the
Right.
high school.
Used to be
So
downtown.
they were,
Yeah.
disconnected, but
Yeah.
now they're, could be there.
Right, and that's a good priced alternative to out-of-district placements working with another public school. So we'd be foolish not to partner with them on that, as long as they got room, so.
Yeah, that's
I will
what
say,
do.
I went to the last two high schools Sanford's had, and went down to get my granddaughter down there, and I was totally lost just going around the parking lot.
7 acres of building, can you imagine that? Yeah.
That seems like a huge amount of increase, up to 32,000.
Because, okay, so what it is we have a few students, okay? The program runs about $29,000 per student, plus we also use, we have services where they do all our, like, IEP meetings and everything else for us at the high school. So we don't go there to do the IEP meetings and stuff for the high school students. So they take care of all the overhead. So that runs about $20,000. So that's separate from the bridges. And so it's as we have certain kids who need the other program. This is new for us. We hadn't, the reason why you didn't see it is because we never had it before. So this is an alternative to sending out of district tuition to like Sweetser or someplace else, which would be, you know, like $65,000 a year.
Should that be separated out or no? Should it be separated out, you know, contracted services that
For the
we
high
always
school.
pay for,
Yeah,
and have another category for the bridge?
it's because it's under a public domain. So the difference between the other two line items is they're private. So in other
Right.
words, they're not run by
Right.
a public school system like we are. But Sanford and Sanford's Bridges program is
public school.
a public thing. So there's a different, this code is what.
Okay, that's
what
all
they
I
tell
wanna
me.
know.
I have
Make
to
sure
put it
you
under
got
this code.
In the right category, yeah.
Oh, and this is one that keeps bouncing around, they keep changing. So, yeah.
Well, it would make sense. It should be together, technically.
Right.
Okay.
Contracted services, part 2.
Contracted services legal. No change at $2,000. Travel and conferences, no change at $800. Supplies, flat at $500. Dues and fees, no change, $800. The main state billing fee hasn't been around for a number of years. Next year, you won't see it at all because that line will move to the left. Psychological contracted services is up $20,000. And that has to do with the number of psych evals and work behavior plans that we're doing with our students. Again, it's one of those, the nature of the kinds of students we're dealing with right now requires a psychologist to be almost on retainer. We work with her quite a bit.
And the other thing too, with this, our current year, we are using our grant money to offset her costs, some of her costs this year. So technically, you know, really they're about the same. It's just that instead of using the grant for this type of contracted services, we used it for out-of-district tuition.
Yeah.
Okay.
Speech contracted services is up $6,000. Speech supplies, no change at $1,000. Occupational therapy is up $3,000. OT supplies, no change. Physical therapy, no change. Physical therapy supplies, no change. Teacher salaries, that ESY is extended school year, so that's summertime, and that's up $1,600 for our summer programming. And the supportive ed tech that works in extended school year is up $2,100. Teacher benefits for extended school year is up $142. Ed tech benefits extended school year are up $62. And then the retirement for teachers is $100, and for ed techs up $67. Supplies for the summer program, no change. Summer school transportation, no change. And then you have your totals.
John, how many days are you planning on your summer school?
So we do 4 weeks, 4 days a week, 3 hours a day, Monday through Thursday, starting in July. Yep, so they get a little ending in June, depending on when we end school. They get a little
Yeah.
break there.
It's about 16 days then.
And then August, yeah, and then August as well. Yep. And then you've got your totals at the bottom of this special ed budget. Before we move on to revenues, are there any questions about Article 3 in total that we missed?
No, I just want to say to Kim, I think it's better to do the, to not have the local entitlement funds, or is that what you were using for, you know, I don't think it's good if it's attached to a person, right? It's better to do the out of tuition,
Yeah, and
out of schools.
I've been really pushing a lot, you know, always stay away from people, because we used to use it for extended school year, and every time you have it attached to a person,
Yeah.
they charge more money. They charge a lot, you know, like 11.5%, and just to cover an extra
Right.
retirement thing. So it's like, no, just keep it simple. Transportation,
Yes,
tuition,
yes.
we're good. Makes my life easy.
So your next is a graphic, which is the pie chart for this school year. Now that we've looked at all of our expenses for FY21 moving into next year, I started this conversation a few months ago with a pie chart based on this year that we're living in. really hasn't changed that much. So this is the pie chart for the future budget that we'd like you to vote on next week. It's all there. Again, 80% of this is pretty much tied up in contracts between personnel, salaries, benefits, contracted services, and tuition. You'll see that the majority of that. Okay? Now, the next page should be your articles broken down with a comparison. I looked over at Judy's real quick, and it looks like we're right on track. It should look like this. Should have a lot of numbers on it, okay? And that's your compare. Yours is colored, looks like, okay, so mine isn't, yours is. All right.
Look how nice it's colored.
Kim, would
I
you
just needed
prefer
to
to?
make sure.
Oh, you went to the back.
I was like, okay, I gotta
So-
make
Mary
sure I cover.
printed her own.
Yeah, so,
I
so
don't wanna
you,
forget anything.
you'll see the article, and then you'll see a subset of that article, like Article 2, regular instruction, and then total salaries and benefits. So these are where we start grouping costs. You'll see the budget in the year in which we're living, what we've projected, and then that variance. And you can do that left to right all the way across, and it goes right over to the back side and gets you to a total.
John, going back to this graph you had,
Yeah,
this is very understandable with a total school budget. What I'd like to see
okay?
is the tuition taken out of that on a separate graph, and what the cost percentage-wise is for this building. You know what I
You
mean?
mean take all the high school kids out of it?
Yeah.
Well, it's high school and
Special ed.
special ed.
It's the combination of everything.
No, I
transportation.
appreciate that,
Yeah.
because special ed is also, a big part of this budget too.
Your transportation, though, is pre-K through high school, too. So it would be, like, the high school run and the pre-K, pre-K through 8 run are not, they're interwoven in one contract as transportation. We didn't break out high school transportation versus the bus runs for the town of Acton.
I guess my thought is, now just pick on repairs and maintenance. The actual cost to operate this building is more than 4% of the cost to have this building, Our repairs and maintenance has no impact on what we pay for high school tuition, for example.
Agreed.
You know what I mean?
No, I get it. It's very separate items.
But this
Yeah.
explains it all.
Well, maybe I don't understand it, I guess.
Oh, well, I mean, I don't know,
I mean, 4% of the total budget, I understand, that's the total budget. But what percentage of the budget to have a K through 8 school here?
Yeah, you'd have to do a comparable. I get what you're saying. So, so to help you out with the 4% of the total budget is repairs and maintenance,
Yeah.
but that has no effect on what we're, high school kids, meaning we're
Right.
not spending any money on repairs and maintenance in the
Right.
new high school. So if you were to ask yourself, what does it cost to run this fiscal plant with these children? What's it cost to run the building? I don't know if I could tell you that. I get what your question is, and I guess my comment would be, I'm not sure if we could call that out. We could probably make a guess to pull some of that out and say, what does it cost for fuel, lights, and kind of do those things. It gets a little tricky when you look at the number of people and who they service. I guess you could say anybody in the building services this building. No. Transportation's gonna be a bigger sticky wicket because we didn't break it
No, I
down
appreciate that.
between the building and the high school.
But Dennis, are you only
mean-
looking for a breakout on
Yeah.
tuition?
No, you want to know maintenance.
It used to be, and I realize everything's changed over the years, but it used to be like a K through 8 school.
Yeah.
The cost of operating that school building, your maintenance would run between, depending on where in the state it was, between 8 and 12% was your operating cost of the facility.
So for argument's sake, if you pulled all the high school pieces out of it and the high school transportation, it might be 8 to 12% still,
Yeah.
not 4%. Is that what you're kind of getting at?
Yeah. No.
You know what, I would
I
say.
can figure it out.
I was gonna say,
just-
you're probably right on, probably
No.
somewhere right in there, because it's a bigger percentage when it's less of a pie, is what you're
Right.
saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
but it's all in these other pages.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Just with the breakdown.
I know what your question is. Yeah, we
I
just
can-
don't present it that
okay,
way.
no.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess I'd rather see dollars than percents.
Well, that you can see that in the page just
It's in
before.
the pages.
Right, so if you wanted to see, actually, the best way to see the dollars worth is the next page, which is the article, and then you can see the increase or decrease. So I'm looking at this one, and that'll give you the actual dollar sign.
Okay, question, to answer
Yeah.
you.
Oh, did you just do it?
I did.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
she did.
So, the actual cost for the high school kids, just for the transportation and tuition, is 17.25% of our total budget. So, which, is just over $1 million. So,
You know,
that's what, so if you pull that out, well, so 82.7% of the total budget
Right.
is K-2, pre-K2,
So 80,
pre-K-8.
okay.
so then you could say what's 82% of the total budget, that runs this building, and then you'd have to figure out what percent is maintenance of that. That would be 2 steps down the road, yeah.
And they probably end up, like I say,
So
under 10%.
$4,647 is the pre-K.
So if you look at the one at the top that says, it should be your next page, which says Acton School Department FY 2020 Budget Proposal, this is where we get to the bottom line of all the work we've done. It starts with Article 2, Regular Instruction. It looks like this. Did they get this? I got this. This is the one I've been working from. This is the summary page. This is where I can look and I can go, okay, what is the bottom line? So you have all of your articles running down the left side on the top, and then you have your years going across the top and a percent increase or decrease. And that's total anticipated expenditures. And then your next box are your revenues. That is, the other side of the ledger is what do we expect for revenues? That's your second box down. And you can see that our revenues are up and our expenditures are just a little bit up, but our overall, our revenue is higher, so that we're actually looking at a net budget of less than what we asked for last year. So our overall budget for the Acton School Department proposed for next year is almost 1% down than what it was last year.
That's impressive.
That's great.
Okay, and that's because our revenue increased. We did go up a little bit, we went up like $20,000, but we brought in more on our revenue to
Now,
way
do we
offset
know
that.
that that's the definite number? The state has already given us the number.
The ED 279.
Got it earlier than usual this year, right?
Yes, we got it
Got it
February
earlier.
2nd. We got it February 2nd as promised by the new commissioner, so
Okay,
that's great.
now, the numbers for Article 2, 6, and 10 that we got in the past don't match up with the numbers, just by whatever. Like Article 2, when you go to that, you said the variance was 106,500, but it's now 115,029.
There was a couple, I went through.
I know, but can we get the new sheets? I don't have
Sure.
the new sheets.
Yep. Yep.
For 2, 6, and 10.
They were all benefit things for.
No, I figured you were doing
Yeah.
adjustants with,
Yeah.
once you got the knowledge.
You just want,
Once I-
perfect,
yeah,
you just
once-
want the updated material to support this page.
Mm-hmm.
Good thing to have.
Well, and as I start putting the book together, the
Yeah.
book will be, everything.
So with that, it's a lot of information in front of you, but as Mary was quick to note, it's all information you had, except for special ed tonight. So you knew going into this where you stood. The question was, how special ed gonna pan out to know what the bottom line was gonna be? And now you know. That's why I didn't wanna make any promises last meeting when you said, so we up or down $79,000? I'm not gonna, I don't wanna commit to anything. We haven't even had a meeting with Sharon yet. But that was a good thing to ask, because you'd already done all your math.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Virginia, you could take your pie and you could write figures in from the sheet.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could write in the salaries and benefits. You could write the amount in on your colors and what your transportation is. So you could put those numbers, if you wanted numbers in those pie pieces, you could get them from this, correct?
They can go through
I
the
see it.
invoices. I think.
Yeah, those would be the numbers. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could pull them right
She
from
said
here.
she'd like numbers in the pie.
Yep.
I don't know who wants to do
That's,
that.
Yeah.
That's
I
us.
mean, if you want to pull
I'd
out
rather
the
see
high
dollars.
school,
I know.
That's really what you have to do, is pull out the high school.
So for warrant and finance, I hope that this gives you a really good picture of
It-
per artiple and comparisons and bottom
It
line.
does, John.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify,
Yep,
Or you could just say, well, okay.
because I was talking about repairs and maintenance.
To take out.
again, with Kim's numbers and what I see in here, you are running about 10% for this facility, which again, for many, many years has been the norm, and I just wanted to say that I think Andy's doing a good job with it, that's all. I wanted to point that out.
Very good. We think so too. Thank you, Dennis. So, I want to then move us, if there aren't any more questions on the revenue, the expenditures, and the bottom line, to our reserve articles that we're gonna look at this year. That's the last thing we need to do tonight. Okay, let's move to that, which shall be presented to you as the long-range planning. They have the long-range planning improvements on the backside of the article itself. So these are, for warrant and finance, these long-term reserve funds that we develop are based through a committee called the Long-Range Planning Committee that identifies what we need mostly for physical plant, and to use a model of budgeting where we save over time to develop the revenue that we need to then execute the project. With Article 19, we're looking for $20,000, which will actually, if approved at that amount, at $20,000, will actually be the last installment for the paving project. And that'll get us to where we need to be to execute that plan to hopefully get the place paved this summer before school starts, with a positive vote from the town floor in April. So Article 19, we've seen a few years in a row, and now we're at the point where we will have the revenue with a positive vote to execute that project. Article 20 is a new one, now that paving is hopefully gonna be taken care of. We're looking for $15,000 in capital improvement reserves for purchasing heating control panel systems and software. Not the break fix, but to start doing upgrades on our building, because there's 3 different generations of building here. And we figured if you want to see on the back side, you'll see what the long-range planning is on that. You'll see that the heating systems, we're going to be looking for, hopefully asking for $15,000 this year and then $15,000 next year to get us to 30 to take care of the heating control panel software. We thought we'd do 15 a year. That seemed to make sense versus asking for the whole 30.
That's not replacing any of the train units as part of this.
That would be an Andy question.
Okay.
When you say train units, you're talking about the univents?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there's one in
Okay,
here.
those-
We don't have one.
We don't have one in here, I just was looking for it,
Budgeted
yeah.
those in his regular operating.
Right,
Right, I
the
remember
hardware.
that.
We're
I didn't know.
doing, yeah, so where
This is-
this is like a capital expenditure, and the other ones, the heating units are not as long as the
Right.
panels. So, but what we did was, he did budget to do sections throughout the year.
At a time
So
each
not-
year.
Yeah.
Not everything, but ones that are needed the most, and then until we get through
Yeah,
the
and his
whole-
regular operating budget would be like the repairs and
Yeah,
the
regular repairs and-
replacements.
Break fix.
But,
Yeah.
yeah.
Upgrades is in the regular, upgrades as needed.
I mean, wouldn't you
Yeah.
call this the big heating unit that's out? There's a separate entrance to go into that. Is
Yeah, that's
so
capital.
That's
That's a biggie.
capital, and that's
Yeah.
what this
Those
is.
are boilers, and what it is more the control panel to run the automated system, the ductwork, the heating, the flow, the air. Right now, Mike has actually literally patched some of the systems so it still works, and Johnson and Jordan can help, but it's 1992, I think, and some of the stuff's outdated. So we need to not continue to patch, but to replace, and that's what this money is. That was the discussion. It's kind of like hardware versus software.
Do you know if they're doing away with the pneumatics?
You mean, I know what pneumatics are. You mean for
In the
opening and
heating system,
closing?
yeah.
Again, not a heating, you know way more about this than I
Because
do. I
when
don't know.
the state decided that was the only way to go.
Yeah, with
And after about
pneumatics.
5 years, they decided that that was a big mistake.
Yeah,
Too much moisture, you know what I mean?
yeah.
So they started converting it all back over.
Pneumatics is
doing away
air
with
and
pneumatics.
electricity, right? Air and electricity,
You're right.
there's no fluid, right? It's
Right.
air, yeah.
I'm
But
just curious.
Also, just so everyone knows, when we're asking for the money for these projects, it's coming out of the school designated capital improvement reserve. Right?
And that's the question, I guess. We have more than just, we have more accounts than just.
Reserve accounts,
reserve
and we
accounts.
didn't have that presentation tonight, but there are some like the matching grant fund and the,
Special
I call it the
ed. Tuition.
catastrophe fund if the roof blows off, you know, those kinds of things, yeah.
Yeah,
Tuition.
and we
They
have.
roll
a-
year to year.
Yeah, we have a tuition one, we have insurance one, we have a legal one, I believe, we have.
Is there a technical one? For
The technical one, I think,
There's
the
a technology
technology,
one, yes, there is.
and
We use the technology.
we used the technology one, I think.
She has it all right
No,
now.
we've still got some.
We still have it. We still
But do
have
we have the
10,000.
figures on all of those? Will
If
we
you-
be getting them?
Certainly can, because those are
They'll all-
still in
they'll all be-
existence.
Yeah,
It'll
they'll all
be-
be printed in the budget book.
they
Right,
will be.
and the one from last year's items are in last year's budget. They printed them out because people were confused.
And the only
about what-
difference between last year and this year is the paving.
And we have one for the high school.
We have one for high school tuition, in
Yeah.
case we get
I have
too many
last year's
kids.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the problem I have, I don't have last year's book, I don't believe, but regardless, normally I would look in the town report at the audit, and you'd see all this stuff, but the town is yet to get it printed yet. So now we're voting on a budget with no audit information for somebody like me to look through and see what all this stuff is. And I know these reserve accounts, is a little contentious with, some people. And so that's just why I wanted to bring it up.
But if you look at last year's, you can see what was there, and we're gonna ask for taking out some of that, those funds that are there. All of them are listed,
Okay.
so it shouldn't be, you know, so hard to
So
figure
you
that
asked,
out.
Virginia, do we have them tonight? No, because it wasn't part of what we were doing tonight,
But I can tell,
but we can tell you what they are, yeah.
All right.
so,
Go
so right now, under our designated reserve, we got 41,000. Under our fuel reserve, we got 10, okay? We have a tuition and assistance technology reserve of 150. So I have two major sped kids come in, or I have a bunch of kids that move in and go to the high school. This is where I could pull to be able to cover the tuition. We have a professional reserve for 10,000 in case we have to have legal counsel that, you know, for grievances that go crazy or something. Please don't, but anyway. And then we have a technology reserve of 10,000. We have a health reserve,
This is
which is
from last
15, which
year's
covers
book.
our
That's what
medical
she's talking about.
insurance. And then the ones that we're working on right now, so the capital improvement reserve account, we now have 39,375, and then we have a matching grant for 10,000. So,
So those are all designated.
Yes, they're all I call them targeted. And that 39 is the one we're gonna be adding, hopefully adding 22 and then expending it on paving,
yes.
because it was developed for paving.
Then, then you also have I believe, a policy on, I hate to even bring this up, just brings back
It's okay.
good old times, doesn't
It's
it,
all
Judy?
right.
No, it's
Your
like a
undesignated fund
50-page
balance.
Yeah, 50-page
Uh,
policy.
You guys have a policy that you keep so much in that.
Yep.
And how much is the dollar amount on that?
It's
Based on-
regulated by
okay,
the
so it's-
state now.
It's a formula, and we do it at the end of every fiscal year, so
Yeah.
it's, and I'm going off the top of my head.
3 months' worth of bills?
No, it's three.
Yeah, wasn't it 3?
30%.
Let me just do that one. That one is not one that I just want to like spew off.
Fair
It's
enough.
something where
Yeah,
it's based on our total budget,
Yeah.
and then it's divided by the students and the number of days. And I can get it so
Yeah.
that when,
I think I understand it anyway, Kim. It's
Yeah.
just, I didn't know how much, what
It's
we were talking about for
regulated now by,
dollars.
the formula is set up now by the state, right? So you
Yeah.
can only,
and it's part of our accounting policy, so that has to be done, and it's something that, when we do the art, like, I'm not sure why the audits are all done, so I'm not sure why. Because I had my school budget for a long
And I
time.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
So-
The town just hasn't put them out.
I don't see undesignated funds listed under the reserves for last year at all, that title.
what'd you say,
Yeah, it was in the
undesignated?
book.
Look in the book, there's a list, because that,
Maybe I'm
it
not
was,
on the right page.
it was
The reserve
printed out by
accounts
the
were at the
auditors.
end, I believe.
Yeah, get this.
It was printed out by the auditors,
Reserves.
or was that in the
Yeah,
town
reserves.
report?
Something says undesignated.
No,
No,
Oh,
that changed,
no.
we don't know what the undesignated
yeah,
is till the
that
end.
wouldn't be
Yeah.
part,
That's it.
Designated is undesignated?
No, these are all designated.
Right.
She's talking about the
3%.
larger undesignated fund, which,
Right, saying there's no,
that's
nothing
in,
here
that's
that
in
says
the
undesignated
regular
fund with-
budget part.
What
It's on
was-
different pages.
I think that comes under the audit.
Right,
Is that-
it's
It's part
printed
of
in
the
the.
audit. It's
printed in
not
the
part
audit.
of
Find out
the
that
budget.
later.
I tore that
No,
page out,
when
right.
we're auditing.
Because nobody would
Number
know.
changes.
Who's gonna look at the audit page?
Well, the
at
other
town
thing,
meeting?
Dennis does.
the other thing
Yeah, read
is,
them every
He
year.
just
Oh,
did
I
it.
don't have it with me, but it's a separate page.
Okay.
Right.
So the fund balance calculation is based on guidelines provided by the school auditors with a target balance for undesignated fund balance consists of the following levels. You have a minimum level where the funds equal to 15 days of funds based on the current year's approved expense budget. And then the maximum level is funds equal to 30 days of the funds based on the current year's approved expense budget. So
I wasn't
until
sure I
the
was on the
town
right page.
votes on anything, this doesn't get calculated because it's done
approved.
after it's approved.
Yeah, I remember
The
we just changed
calculation
that
at
too.
each level takes place annually and is reported to the school committee, which is done at the end of
Thank you.
June. And the target is determined by dividing the total number of the approved school budget by the number of school days in that calendar year, and then multiplied by the number of days in each level.
With that being said, when Ron Smith met with the town, the undesignated fund was, he said, was 1.7. All right? The town had 2.3, I think, or 2.2, but a lot of that was designated or whatever. So if the school has, say, I'm just using rough numbers here, 800,000 in that, and that's gonna cover all expenses until taxes start coming in again, okay? That means in the schools, 70% of the town's expenses. That means the town has approximately 900,000 to last them until October 15th, when taxes start coming in. This is what I'm just gonna try and get clear in my head.
All I can say is, I could tell you about the school.
I appreciate
can't tell you
that.
about the
I
town.
appreciate 100%,
and the
Kim.
other thing is that the town.
I just want this clear in my head.
The school, the town can't use any of the school budget money for anything else except what's designated for the school.
No, I appreciate
Yeah,
that, Judy.
yeah.
I appreciate
So
that.
I don't know how that all works out, but we never know what our really undesignated fund is until the end of the school
End of the
year.
school year, yeah.
And we see what all the
No,
expenditures
I
for the
appreciate
year
that.
have been, if we've used all, if we've, whatever, and
Right.
then we know. And what we've done in the past is, what we've done every year is, if we're over the amount that we're supposed to have, then we turn it back to the.
Offset taxes.
We offset taxes, we give it back to the
No,
town
I
to
appreciate
offset
that.
taxes.
I
Well,
appreciate
and
that.
that's why you see the 207. So you've got 207, so that way that brings down our undesignated fund balance, because that's where it's coming
Yeah.
from. Plus, you've got the 20 and the 15 that also will be coming out of there.
Yeah.
Which is also, this is a way to keep it at a specific level, so it
Yeah.
doesn't keep growing and growing.
Yeah.
So you're using it constantly to say, okay, this is what we budgeted, these are how things actually went, this is what's left over, okay, so that leftover, boom, this is what we're gonna use to help offset the following year's budget. And sometimes you say, well, we could do the budget, plus we could, maybe finish the paving, or we could do, it gives you that, flexibility to be able to, get things.
It's part of me, I guess, as a Warren Finance Committee member, I'm trying to look at the total for the whole town. And this is just one department.
You bet.
And having
Yeah.
a clear understanding of what you guys have will
Right.
give me a lot clearer understand
Yeah.
on
Well,
working on the other
You bet.
part of the budget. And just to give you a little history, and I know Judy remembers this very well, about 10 years ago, there was a selectman that used his influence to convince the other selectmen to use all the schools undesignated fund balance and apply it to keep the taxes down.
Oh, my.
And those were, I don't know, more interesting days, I guess we'll say. And I appreciate the way you guys are doing it. And sometimes there's a confusion because with when the town says, you know, we got $1.7 million,
Some of it's
a lot of it's
committed.
already to the school.
Some of it's committed.
You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
So they really don't.
Right.
So do they really need to have this much money in the end? And I realize it's not your responsibility, all you guys can talk about is the school, but I'm trying to get the picture of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And
Well, there's
gonna
definitely
be
two ways
interesting.
of looking how you want to do taxes. So there's a way of saying, you know, we build up, you know, reserve accounts and then you keep them at a certain level, and that way you're not, like you said, you've got money to cover things until you get to the point where your tax bills come in, because you start paying like January 1st, but your tax bills don't come in until October. You've still got to cover
so I appreciate
that
that.
10 months, right? So you could do it that way. Like I said, build up a reserve, use your reserve, so you're using basically your own internal line. And it's not costing you interest, it's not costing, you know,
borrowing.
Internal
borrowing
line of
money.
credit.
The other,
There's the
you know,
borrowing.
and then you'll have others that want to say, no, I don't want you to hold on to that money, I don't want those reserves. I want you to go and get tax anticipated notes, and I
Right.
want you to, you know, you're gonna have to pay the interest, and I want, you know, you have to work with that. It's not like you can just go to the bank and say, oh, I'm just a town bank, just so you.
No, we used to do it a couple times a year, get
Yeah.
$500,000 a couple
And-
times a
But
year.
it's a process, and it's expensive, and so here's how, you know, and then if you've got a delay, that means you hold off and you can't pay anybody. So towns, you know, can decide which way they
No,
want
I
to go.
appreciate that.
So it's just two different ways of, okay, which way do you want to go?
Right, but some people think that the town, which is true, can borrow money to pay their bills cheaper than I can borrow the money to pay my taxes.
It's still interest that the town then has to pay, which we are the townspeople.
Yeah,
So
so
I don't want to
you're
pay
double
interest if
billing.
you can plan properly.
Do you think this is gonna be a question with your committee?
What's that?
Is
What
every
we're
year.
discussing here? I mean,
Comes
It
is
should be.
gonna
Comes
have to
up
go
every
up?
year.
It should be, if they're doing their job.
Well, I know, but we're separate than the rest of the town.
No, you're part of it.
Yeah, but we run our own business here compared to the
I
rest of the town.
appreciate that, but the
So
rest of
they
us are
can't-
paying for the whole thing.
I know that, but they can't compare what goes on in the town as what goes on in the
Right.
school. You know
I
what I'm
think they
saying?
can. I mean, it's like saying you can't compare what goes on with the fire department, because that's a separate,
But, no, they're part of the town.
so's the school.
We're
A department of
okay,
town.
well, I know, but I'm just saying, do you think that you can explain that all to the rest of your buddies there before we?
Well, first off, they're not all my buddies. I got very few buddies.
Well, I know, but before we get to the group and whatnot, because it seems to be the same questions that come
Well,
up every year, nobody gets
and I
it.
anticipate that it may. I think the thing that I'd like the warrant and fin, if possible, and you know, what I'd like people to do is I'd like the warrant and finance to voice an opinion on a budget that's almost 1% less than it was last year. Is that okay or not okay with the warrant and finance? Is it too low? Is it too high? Would you rather see more of an increase or more of a decrease? To me, that's all the work we've done. These other questions about borrowing and a bank and taxes and bills,
That's nothing,
it's beyond the scope of educating our kids. To me, that's another forum, but I think that forum's gonna land back again in the school committee process, and I kinda hope it doesn't. I just need to know, is less than 1% decrease enough? Do you want a 10% increase? Do you want a 10% decrease? Do you want it flat? We're at a little less than 1%. It's gonna cost us a little less than 1% next year to run the school than it did this year, so it's gonna cost us less next year. That would be a great ending point to say, does that work for you?
Right, but
What do you think? But I think the other things will creep in, so I think we probably need to be able to find time for that.
You know, I don't think we're assured, and we've seen it go up and down all the time. This
Mhm.
increase from the state subsidy is just a lot.
Yeah, I see that.
And
Yeah.
if we don't get it next year,
Right.
because things got messed up at the state level, which I can only see
Things-
it getting messed up.
Right.
Yeah,
That's-
so next year we
This
could
seems to
have
have
a
been a
bigger
mistake.
increase if we don't have the, if we don't have the revenues coming in next year, then we
Right.
would have, our budget would.
That's right.
So the
Most
last,
likely go up.
the last 4 years, we've had less than 1% increase. So it's a little less than 1% increase each year the last 4 years. Now we're moving into not flat, but a decrease. So we're kind of running that flat, a little bit above. Now we're a little bit below. I'd like it to think that we're kind of always staying there. When we look at other school districts, it is interesting. If you want to start looking around at which way the barometer's going for them. Just kind of saying, throw that out there.
No,
And
because
it-
we're small and we could come up with
You can control-
solutions,
right.
and that's what we've done.
Right.
But
Well,
for
well-
Virginia's point, I don't see that figure. The undesignated fund is not in the book saying we have
Because you
800,000.
don't have it till after the audit.
Yeah, and it's
And
not-
that's because this is done in April, right?
Right.
So we vote in April, the school anyway, and, yeah, we won't know.
So the figure wasn't available.
So that
in
number is like this.
Well,
So
you know what it was at July
What number could you
1st.
put there, huh?
You know what it was as
Right.
of July
That-
1st.
that's-
No, you
correct.
could put from July 1st of 2019, this is what it was, somewhere in the book. Is that what you're saying?
The
Yeah,
only
I
thing
just
with
didn't know if I was on the right
It's
page.
not there.
It was
It's not
funds, and I didn't see anything.
Look what you opened up with that question, Virginia.
No, I just
No,
want,
I don't.
I want to make sure you get your
Well,
answers.
well, if I could just clarify,
Just kidding.
where I've really got this thing all off track, which I'm famous for. I've got no issues with the school budget whatsoever. And what you guys have done the last few years, I think is great. I don't believe in micromanagement. I don't believe in coming down here and telling John what he needs
Oh,
to do.
yeah, I know, you don't.
I think you guys have done a great job with it personally, and that's probably gonna be my, conversation with, well, I know it would be, with the rest of the Warren Finance.
But
You know, you got something you wanna take on, I think there's a lot more
Yeah.
what the school budget's given us to bother with.
My simple request is if we can focus on the school budget, the numbers, where are we, up or down? Does it seem to meet the needs of what we do to educate our kids? Because we can tend to get into conversations about language. And I remember at last year's vote, that got really tiresome after a while to keep working on, you know, but or and or then. Those kinds of
Yep,
things, I
and-
guess, are important, but to me, the work that the committee has worked so hard with, and Kim and I, is to just come to a place where is this the cost of educating children in Acton? And kind of focus on that. These other pieces are, to me, ancillary, and I'm just speaking for me. Maybe you feel differently, guys.
No, I
I
agree.
don't know.
No,
I agree.
you're absolutely right. And as far as the language goes, you know, the school budget language is not like the municipal budget language. That's the articles, the way the articles are required to be written now are not like the municipal articles are written, because you approve to expend to a certain amount up to the end. And when you get to the end and you got the big picture, this is what you've approved, all of these articles, then you appropriate it, not until you get to that point. And that's been the issue for the last few years. And if you look at any school budgets around, in fact, last year when all this was coming up, I took it upon myself to look at different school, different towns and how they wrote their articles. And it's just like we write ours, because that's the way,
Legally, we have to.
legally, that's the way we have to do it. And the school budget has to be done according to Maine School Management Association, not Maine Municipal Association. It's two different things. And that's been the bone of contention for the last couple of years, is that, you know, some people think that the articles should be written like they were written years ago,
Yeah.
before the state mandated that they be done this way as a school budget. And we have to do it the way the state
We're
tells
not
us
going to change the wording. We're
This-
going to
the-
do
we
what
have
our
to do it the way
lawyers
the
tell
state
us.
tells us to do it, how the articles are supposed to be written. And some articles, they give you word for word. This is the way you write this article. You write it exactly like this. like 14 and 15.
And we've had it reviewed by Dominic Woodson many times, but in the last 2 years, I've also gone to Tyler Backus, who's at the main DOE, and I'm like, this is a guy who tells me it's gotta look like this. I'm like, so, does this look right to you? He goes, yes. I think he changed one word last year. That was
But I
the
mean,
end
we've
of
checked and
nutrition
checked and checked, so we are clear on what we're supposed to have written in our articles.
I don't think you're gonna have any
You don't anticipate it?
flashback from anybody, possibly maybe one on warrant and finance.
That's what we're thinking.
That's what the
This
essence
year.
of the
Other than
conversation
that, it's
is.
there are
Appreciate that.
different cast of characters
Yeah.
on the committee
Yeah.
this year.
That's
No,
good.
it's refreshing, it's good, that's great. 'cause
And the,
it's- Yeah,
you know, the amount of your budget increase overall is a little, what, less than 1%?
it's a decrease.
It's a decrease.
Did I say increase?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Decrease.
Even that would be
Um,
impressive.
Yeah, no, but because so much of the money in budgets is needed for the school system, I think people that live here expect us to take a skeptical looking
And you
view
should.
of things.
And you should.
And it's nice to be able to come away with the idea that, okay, these things, certain things are absolutely gotta happen. And then there are some other things in here that are nice to have. So you look at what the school wants in total and compared to, and you take that into account with what the other departments in town need, you know, whether the fire department wants a tanker or a ladder or whatever new toy that they need, and say, what's the bottom line to what the tax rate's gonna be? So there are times when I look at figures and I say, what could we do without, if it comes to raising the tax rate in the town, where do we start shaving a little? And my own view is to start at the big money grabbers and work my way down. And just because one department's budget was a certain percent this year, I don't look at it next year and say, oh, okay, they're only 1% more. It depends on how many dollars we're talking about here. Because when you get to the contract years, a lot of times you can expect that your budget needs are gonna go up. So maybe in some in-between years, maybe there's an opportunity to shave off some dollars. I don't just look at, say, 1%.
Sure, this might be one of those
I should
in-between
be
years,
thrilled.
yeah.
Maybe, maybe not.
But if you-
I think if you look at the pie,
Right, that's
if you look at the
picture.
pie, and you look at the process that the school uses in that, a lot of stuff gets shaved before it gets shaved before it gets to us. Because the teachers put in what they want, what they'd like to have, and then John takes it and he looks at it and he shaves off what he thinks isn't really necessary or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it finally comes back to us, and we question some of the stuff and whether it should be there or not. And so by the time we get ready to vote on it, it's been shaved as much as you can shave when you look at the kind of a piece of pie we have.
Well, I added it up, 91.7% is contracted.
Right, you can't,
The other thing is the number of kids is staying the same this year. There's not a huge decrease or anything like that, so that's a good thing, you know?
plus the
Because
high,
if you had like, let's say we had 30 kids move out of town, you would expect maybe the school would show a decrease somehow.
Yeah.
You know,
Do away with the class.
Yeah.
class
Well, that
sizes,
would be
number
the
of teachers,
following
something
year.
like
Yeah,
that.
you might
But
have-
if
you might
it's staying the
have
same,
one
then
less
the
teacher or
budget
something
staying the
like that.
same is good, and even going down is,
But does the, change off a little bit, does the school committee sit in on the salary budget, all the budget negotiations with
There's
Two.
two members.
Two
the
members are on
teachers
the,
and their union, or?
Their
That's correct,
union
yeah.
reps.
That's how that works.
we have a committee, and it's Mary and Amanda right now that work with John and the president of the union, a union
And usually
representative.
two teachers, yeah.
And usually there's a couple of teachers on that, and they all work together, and they go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until they come up with something that's gonna work for everybody.
Well, and the last one we had, we did without lawyers to save the town.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
We said we could do this, I mean, come on. So we did. Whereas if you look at the contract 3 years prior, then it was, we had a lot more meetings. We had to pay the lawyers a lot more.
But we also went through the interest-based bargaining process.
Right, we learned.
To learn how
We
to.
did learn.
Yeah.
You know, go back and
Yeah.
forth and not make it so contentious, and that was a really good process
That
to
was
learn. And this
helpful.
year, we did it on our own.
Well, I think when you walk into the room and there's lawyers there, then the weather changes immediately.
Yes,
The
I
weather
think it
changes.
does, but
Yeah.
it made more and more meetings. You know, we don't get paid for this.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, is it at all worthwhile to look at, and you obviously did quite well on your own, to get an objective mediator as opposed to
No,
lawyers?
you never
If you
want, you
can't-
never want
if
an
you can't agree,
outsider.
yeah.
You never
Yeah.
want, that's the last thing.
What happens is,
really.
when you bring in
Been there
outside
before.
people, is that you get, from the unions, you get a mediator from the MEA, and they don't bend at all. They're really not very easy to work with. And if you're gonna have a mediator from the MEA come in with the union people, then you would need to get somebody from Maine School Management. You need to get somebody that represents the school department as well. So then
It's
you've got,
equal.
you've got other factors where, you know, maybe this teachers might be in agreement with something, and the union representative might not encourage them to settle for that, or vice versa on the other side. So if you can do it, this is the first time we've done it without,
But it worked well?
and it worked well, so
No, I have to compliment the teachers too.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't want to spend all their time negotiating. You know, we want
Yeah,
to
that's
come
not
to a
their-
conclusion.
necessarily their forte.
But
Yeah.
you know, we want to be fair, but we're also responsible to the town, so we've got to.
It's
kind of-
definitely a balance.
It's a balance, you know.
Well,
Plus, the outside people don't know the school, know the people in the school, you know, I mean, they have their own rules, I would imagine, right?
No, I'd love for, you know, skeptics to come into the school and see how it's run and really see during the day. You know, that's how you really figure it all out, if it's working. Are we paying the right amount to have what we have here?
we could send you down one skeptic you could educate,
One?
if you'd really
Well,
want
they
to.
have to be fingerprinted, so do you think they'll pass?
What?
I think generally myself that when it comes to the school, there's very little skepticism in town. And I think the people in the town have always, once or twice in the last 30 years, there might have been a little problem, but
Pretty supportive.
it's been pretty supportive, and I think they've probably had more support than
It's been my
a lot
experience.
of other
Yeah.
departments in town over the years.
And I
This
think,
whole budget
I think
thing-
the budget process that we adopted a few years
Yeah.
back, which.
Thanks to Kim and Ryan.
Yeah, thanks to Kim, yeah, I mean, it's,
It's so
It-
clear.
It's so clear, it isn't like, well, what are you spending this on? Are you spending this on this? Are you spending this on this? No, this is what it is, and you know, this is what it was last year, and this is what we have to come up with for this year. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less, but it's, I don't think you could get more transparent than these books.
And I don't know of any school that does it like this.
No.
I get a one-page flyer from Set 57 and that's it. So.
No, I appreciate how the school does it.
All right, are we ready to adjourn?
Well, we can adjourn without even a vote, right? Or
Can we?
Is this a-
right?
Can I ask one other
It's just a
question?
workshop.
Yeah.
Sure.
2 minutes.
On just paving, for example. So 3 years ago, we said, total $60,000. Was that a quote, and is that price good for 3 years, or is it a risk of it going up?
Yeah, you know, if petroleum went
risk.
way up, it would be a risk,
So
but,
if it goes up,
yeah.
where do you
Here's-
take
well, here's what-
the
We don't
extra
have- Yeah.
piece of change from?
We're gonna put out an RFP as soon as possible to find out what the bids on this would be, but we're not going to
Well, you don't-
look at any bids
No, we
till
don't
after we
have
have
any
a budget. We don't have any bids. We don't have
It
an
was a
RFP.
chance we took.
Yeah,
It
we,
was.
no,
We
we
take a
had
chance on it.
we had not official bids, we had some estimates as to what would it cost. An estimate and a bid are two different things. We
Right.
had estimates, and
Yeah.
that set the sale for what do we wanna ask for. Now, the bids come in at, we're gonna tell you it's gonna cost you this much to have us take the job. That's a process unto itself, and we're just unwinding that now. But you're right, you know, 3 years down the road, what could change? A lot of things could have changed over the last.
Where do you take the money from if you need it? If it's more than 60,000?
We'd probably have to go another year.
We'd probably have to go another year.
You could,
If it all of a sudden went up 15 grand, we'd have to come
That would-
back
that
and
would be
say,
a
we'll do
problem.
it another
Or you could
year.
go to a
wait
special
another
town
year.
meeting.
Or we could go to the
You'd
town
have
meeting
to
in June, if
ask
it, we'll
for-
know by then what the bids are. That's what I was
Ask for-
thinking.
You have to ask the town for
for more.
permission to take that
The-
money.
the balance.
from-
We won't
from
know
our
anything.
We'd look at the
designated fund or
options.
you
something
could
like
take
that.
and look at getting in with the town also.
Right, in June.
For the
That would-
roads.
That would, yeah, well, that would be, my thinking
For the
would
same
be,
price.
if it was way up, if it was way up for some reason, Virginia and R60 didn't make it, we have a budget in April. I would talk to the school committee about going to the June town and asking for the balance, if that made sense. That would be that'd be my first line of thinking.
Yeah.
I'd have to see the numbers to think about that, because
We
then
did
you could
that,
still do it in the
what,
summer.
2 years ago, we did that for something,
Yeah.
preschool or something.
Oh, yeah, it was the preschool
No,
teacher,
teacher,
because we
yeah.
ended
You
up
didn't have-
with
you
another
needed
suite.
another one.
We needed
Yeah.
another
Right.
teacher, we didn't realize how many preschool kids we were gonna
Right.
have. and
Well, they were just
everybody
making the
moved in after-
laws.
Yeah,
They were
you were
making
right
those
ahead of
laws, and we're
it.
like, what do you mean?
Where'd all these kids come
Only
from?
8 kids per teacher.
You ended up with like
You know how many
almost
people we
30.
have?
Yeah.
I don't know what
yeah.
the town's gonna pay per ton this year. I don't think they've got a contract yet. Contracted price, but I was just,
Yeah.
I don't, I mean, if you could save $10 a ton by, under the same deal, then the money in your pocket. Well, not yours per se, John.
Not, nobody's
Not
pocket.
ours. That's right.
That was good, Dennis.
That money goes back to the
John's not a
taxpayer.
town.
I'm not gonna start another conversation on this. I'm gonna smile at you.
I got planning board meeting.
I hear me, it's a planning board meeting to go to. We'll let you go over there and get it going.
Okay. Motion to adjourn,
I'll make that motion.
second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
They wanna put in a solar plant
I'm saying there's no.
up on the H Road.